In this video, I'm going to go through 3 IGCSE past paper questions involving function notation and inverse functions. In this first question, they give you a function, f of x, which is 2x over x minus 6, with the restriction that x cannot be equal to 6. They ask you to find f of 10, and then it asks you to find the inverse function. So the first part here, finding f of 10, is fairly straightforward. You basically rewrite the function, replacing x with the value of 10. So we have 2 times 10 over 10 minus 6. Just work that through. That is 20 over 4, which equals 5. So 5 would be the solution. Second part is more complicated. They ask you for the inverse function, f to the minus 1. So what we do here is we take our function, 2x, x minus 6, and we say, let y be that function. Y equals 2x, x minus 6. And now we want to rearrange that function so we have x as the subject. So the first step there would be to multiply by the denominator. Let's get rid of the denominator. So we have y bracket x minus 6 equals 2x. Second step is to expand the bracket. So we have yx minus 6y equals 2x. Then we want to collect the x terms and get them onto the same side and everything else onto the other side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do yx minus 6y minus 2x equals 0. So all my x terms are on the left. And then I'm going to get rid of the rogue minus 6y term by adding it to both sides. So I get yx minus 2x equals 6y. Now my x terms are on the left. I can factorize. So I have x, y minus 2 equals 6y. So x is simply 6y divided by the y minus 2. Now, I need to write my function in terms of x. So what I do now is a little trick. I would say that f to the minus 1 of x such that, and I just change in my function down here, I just rewrite it with x here and x here. So I get 6x over x minus 2. And that's the solution. Just want to go through that again just so you understand, because the steps quite often are fairly similar. We take our function and we put it equal to y. Then we need to rearrange this to get x on its own. If you have a division here, the first thing you do is to multiply both sides. Now this, remember, you have to treat this as one thing. X minus 6 is one item. So we multiply both sides by that. We have no fraction now, but we have a bracket, so we want to expand the bracket to get rid of the bracket. So that gives us the yx minus 6y. Then you want to collect all the terms involving x onto one side. This time we put it onto the left, and everything else onto the other side. Once you have just terms in x on one side, you factorize. That separates the x then, so you can actually divide by the bracket. And then the final stage, once you have x equal to this, is you just rewrite this part here, replacing y with x. One other thing worth pointing out and noticing is if you look back at the function here, they said that x could not be equal to 6. Hopefully you can see why x cannot be equal to 6, because if x was 6, we would have 6 minus 6 making 0, so our denominator would be 0. And we avoid dividing by 0 wherever we can. It's not a nice thing, so we just say we cannot do that. So that's why it had that restriction there, and that's an important thing to just be aware of. In this second question, we're given two functions. F of x is 2x minus 3. G of x is x over 3x plus 1. In the first part, it says state the value of x that cannot be included in any domain of G. Basically what they mean here is what value for x can we not use? Which one would it give us an answer that is impossible? And thinking back to the first question, I told you that the denominator of a fraction could not be equal to 0. So that's what we have to look at here. We take the denominator, which is 3x plus 1. We put it equal to 0. And then if we solve that, we would say that 3x equals minus 1. X would be minus 1 over 3. And if you look at it, if x was minus 1/3, then the denominator here would be equal to 0. You cannot divide by 0. So that is the value that we cannot have. So that would be the exclusion. So x equals 1 minus 1/3. That's our solution. Second part is find g of f of x. That's how we would read that. Find g of f of x. So what we do is we take our f of x function and we put it into g. So wherever we see x in our g function, we put 2x plus 2x minus 3 into it. Then we rearrange it and simplify. So our starting point here would be 2x minus 3 over 3 2x minus 3 plus 1. So just to reconfirm here, my x here has been replaced with 2x minus 3, and my x here has also been replaced with 2x minus 3. Now working this through, I have 2x minus 3 on the top, and at the bottom I have 6x minus 9 plus 1, and simplified that would be 2x minus 3, 6x minus 8. You have to simplify because it states that in the question. The final part, express the inverse function of g to the minus 1 or g to the minus 1 in the form g to the minus 1 of x. So we're doing the inverse function of this. So the same as we did before, let's just write it down as y equals x over 3x plus 1. And then let's rearrange, treating this denominator as an item in itself. So first of all, we multiply by the denominator. So we get y, 3x plus 1 equals x. Second step, expand the bracket. So we get 3xy plus y equals x. Then we collect the x terms to one side. So we get 3xy plus y minus x equals 0, and move the non-x terms to the other side. 3xy minus x equals negative y. Then we factorize, so x comes out, so it's x 3y minus 1 equals minus y, and then finally we divide by the bracket. So we would say x equals minus y over 3y minus 1. And finally, because we're doing g to the minus 1 of x, we change the y's into x. So g to the minus 1 of x is equal to minus x over 3x minus 1. If you did slightly different algebraic manipulation, you could have come up with a different answer, which is x over 1 minus 3x. I say different, they're equivalent, they are of equal value. It's just that this one has been multiplied top and bottom by negative 1. So either of those answers and the correct algebra leading to those answers would get you the full marks. This final question is more complicated than the other two. It does involve two functions, f of x being 5x squared minus 10x plus 7, where x is greater than or equal to 1. And we have g of x is 7x minus 6. The first part isn't too bad. It's f of g of 2. We don't need to do an algebraic substitution here because it's telling us to do f of g of 2, not f of g of x. So the first thing we can do is just write down what g of 2 is. G of 2 is simply taking the g function and replacing the x with the 2. So it's 7 times 2 minus 6, which is 14 minus 6, which is 8. Then we take that value of 8 and we put it into our f function. So f of 8 then will be 5 multiplied by 8 squared minus 10 multiplied by 8 plus 7, which works out to be 247. So nothing too strenuous there. The next bit is far more complicated. So it's an inverse function they want us to find, f to the minus 1 of x. Here's our function, but it's a quadratic. So we start as we did on the last one. Y equals, we do 5x squared minus 10x plus 7. Now this won't factorize easily, and generally with these what you have is something that will lead into completing the square. So what we have here is we've got y equals 5 bracket x squared minus 2x plus 7. That is equal to 5. Now we complete the square with the x squared minus 7. So what we do there is we say we're going to have x minus 1 squared. So we've taken half of our value of 2 and put it in here. Okay. Now if we expanded x minus 1 squared, what would we get? We would have x squared minus 2x plus 1. So that gives us 1 more than we need. So we need to take away 1, like that. And that's plus 7. So that's completing the square. There'll be other videos available that you can actually see how to do that. Just put the little note there, completing the square. But basically what we've done here is we've rewritten x squared minus 2x as x minus 1 squared minus 1. Now we will expand our first bracket. So we go 5x minus 1 squared minus 5 times minus 1 is 5. And then we have plus 7 at the end. So we have 5x minus 1 squared plus 2. Now we know that this is y equal to, I should have probably written it all the way down. So let's now start rearranging this. So we're going to get y minus 2 equals 5x minus 1 squared. Then I can divide by 5. So y minus 2 divided by, the whole thing divided by 5 equals x minus 1 squared. So x minus 1 will be equal to the square root of y minus 2 over 5. So x is equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of y minus 2 over 5. Now clearly that's two answers, but if we look at the question at the top here, it says x is greater than or equal to 1. So we don't want the 1 minus because it's just going to make our answer smaller than 1. So clearly we want 1 plus this root. And because we're writing f to the minus 1 of x, I'm going to do it in one go. So f to the minus 1 of x will be equal to 1 plus the root of x, rather than y this time, minus 2 over 5. Take a moment to review what has happened here. The completing the square is the thing that is probably the most difficult thing to spot. Do review other videos on that to see exactly how to do that. But that in a nutshell are the three different types, or three main types of questions you're going to have with functions, and inverse functions.